Conversation continues right here at the Situation Room, Spice FM, KTN Home and online. In the room this and every weekday morning, you have CT Muga, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. We are having a conversation about the Super Tuesday, 22 county assemblies due to discuss the BBI Amendment Bill today. If all of them pass this, we are done and dusted. It'll be 22 plus 12. That makes it what?
34.
34 county assemblies will have passed it. They only need 24. And I think the BBI Secretariat wants 100%. They're not going for short of that. Joining us now is one of the members of the county assembly that's going to be discussing this matter today. The MCA for Ndenderu ward in Kiambu County, Solomon Kinuthia. Good morning, Solomon.
Good morning, Eric.
Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room in person.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to join you in person.
Very good. Yes. So we were talking about the county assemblies and seeing that there are some that are still conducting public participation. We saw the statement from the governor of Makueni County yesterday, after some public participation sessions with the public and then with the MCAs in conjunction with Machakos County. Has Kiambu conducted any public participation?
Yes, we did. In line with the Public Participation Act that was recently enacted by the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And we invited memorandum from the public, and we conducted a town hall meeting in 2 days running, where we listened to the public. And of course, we would have wanted to go to the sub-counties and the wards, but the prevailing COVID situation made us want to reduce and balance off the public interactions because we are faced with a situation that's very unique that last faced the entire world in 1920s, 1919, 1918,
True.
when
Immediately
Benito
after the First World War,
Mussolini was in power. So we elected to minimize public interactions in Kiambu, as well as appreciate the place of electronic communication.
Okay.
And we overwhelmingly received the support for the BBI.
I was going to ask, how did that work out? And when you say overwhelming support, how did that come through? What did you see that would then now say was
from the emails that came in, from the memoranda from civil society, from the neighborhood associations. They are all in support of the increasingly devolvement of funds to the grassroots. And also the many others amendments to the constitutions that assures the public of a greater role of the civil society, the public, in the determination of the place of justice and economic equity of the citizens in public life.
Okay.
Yes.
So are you saying that there was overwhelming support in terms of numbers?
Yes.
Or are you saying that from the responses you got,
Yes.
these issues are the ones that received overwhelming attention?
For Kiambu, BBI is a welcome intervention.
Okay.
In terms of resource allocation and representation, because Kiambu has about 2.5 gazetted numbers in terms of the last census. And currently we have only about 12 MPs. Via BBI, we are going to have about 18 MPs. And there's a cardinal principle that there should be no taxation without representation. Again, in terms of resource allocation, we are going to get double the current allocation in terms of equitable share from the treasury. In terms of CDF, we are going to get extra 6 constituencies with about 136 million in terms of CDF share. And also, in terms of voice, in terms of regional issues, we are going to get about 6 extra MPs. So we don't anticipate opposition to the Constitutional Amendment Bill. In terms of also empowering MCAs to be a voice in the grassroots, we are going to get about 25 million as a dedicated fund for grassroots development.
If the BBI passes?
If it passes.
Okay.
So we got overwhelming support because our local issues were addressed. Again, if we go back in history, from 1983, after the attempted coup of 1982, we saw a serious push by the then President Moi to consolidate power. And he did so by making sure he created an artificial majority in parliament and all other organs of governance. Okay? This he did by gerrymandering areas that are scarcely populated and having more constituencies at the expense of places like Nyanza, Western Kenya, Central Kenya.
Mheshimiwa,
Okay?
you do know we are going to challenge that view, but continue.
Fine, we are getting there, and I would want to be enlightened, and I would want to appreciate a different opinion.
Yes.
So BBI is coming very late in the day to address issues that were very negative to highly populated areas in this country since 1983. And Kiambu being one of the very densely populated area, we see no reason why we should not celebrate
one of the most,
this
no,
day.
not very, one of the most dense.
Densely
Yes.
populated
Yes.
areas. That we saw perethrum sector die a very undeserved death. We saw tea and coffee sector die. We saw the emergence of matatu sector, which has not addressed the issue of employment in Kiambu since 1983. So we are seeing an advent of a system of governance that would address our own misgivings about the structure of governance since 1983-84 to date, which is about 38 years. Most of us were not born by then, but we bear the brunt of the governance system and the excesses of then that are being addressed in the BBI system.
Right.
So we see no reason why we should oppose this very welcome system of governance that has come on board.
Mheshimiwa, you put it so beautifully. I want to take you back. Huh?
Yes.
When you talked about the bill that the Senate passed,
Yes.
the details of this bill with regards to public participation, what were they? Meaning point one, these are the things they said must be part and parcel of this process that we're talking about. And how do you align that to what you did to ensure that you had met the basic tenets of public participation?
If you look at the public participation bill, act rather, because it's
It
already been enacted.
hasn't gone, yes, correct.
It's been enacted. One, there is the option of accepting a memoranda from the public. There's also the option of going to the grassroots and hearing from the people and compiling reports. So granted that even as we sit here, we are observing COVID protocols. If we decide to travel outside this country, we would have also to observe the protocols that are binding by the times that we are living in. Kiambu is densely populated. If we were to travel across the length and breadth of Kiambu and interact with the 12 sub-counties, would have, of course, encouraged the spread of COVID. So we adopted the memoranda system where we can have a town hall system for 2-3 days running in Kiambu County. And we could also advertise in 3 or 4 newspapers of national circulation were public. And we agree from the census that was recently done in 2019 that 7 out of 10 members of public are below the age of 35 and they are ICT compliant. So they are able to access our platforms and give us views. So going by that, we elected to do town hall meetings in the capital city of Kiambu.
So the
gazetted capital
town
of
hall
Kiambu.
meeting happened only in Kiambu town.
Yes.
And who attended this?
Civil societies, neighborhood associations,
Right.
normal wananchis, and it pains me to call them normal because they are my employers.
Ordinarily,
And
how many
it
people?
also, it also pain you to call your employer here or the head of radio here
normal CEO.
because he is your employer. But as you would want us to call them, they are.
No, we
normal
don't. We don't
wananchis.
want you to call them normal one. I just say citizens came. So, how many people attended this meeting?
About 3,000-4,000, and we
4,000
received
people.
also
Over the 3 days.
Over the 3 days, or
Yes.
every day there were 3,000, 4,000 people.
2,000 each day, and then also from the diaspora and from the length of breadth of Kiambu, we received also electronic
Memoranda.
correspondence.
What's the town hall capacity,
from,
Mheshimiwa?
It's big. We have a big compound in Kiambu, and we also benchmark and leverage on technology because from the county assembly we have about an acre or two of open space. Then next we have the county commissioner's offices.
Which is literally
He
next
also
door.
has 3 acres. So with projectors and all that,
So you erected tents, and that this is what
yes,
happened.
we are able to host people, and then we observed social distancing.
Okay. And then how was this now conducted, the 3-day event?
We heard from the public.
So the people would stand up and say,
Yes, they would submit.
this is what they think about
Yes.
the BBI Amendment Bill.
Yes.
Had you made sure that by the time people are coming for this meeting, they have seen a copy of the BBI Amendment Bill and interacted with it?
Yes, as I'd said earlier that, and you've seen studies to this effect, that most wananchis are ICT compliant. And we make sure that they are aware where they can download a copy of the BBI. So we publicized the link, and most members of the public, besides us printing enough copies for people who attended, they were aware of the contents of the BBI Amendment Bill.
Well, there are some people who would,
And mind you, the committee on BBI that was chaired by the late Honorable Yusuf Haji visited Kiambu, and they collected views which were collated and they were, condensed into the BBI bill. So for the past 2 years, the BBI bill is a product of a robust process of public participation. So what we are doing at the county assembly is just to counter check whether all they did when the Yusuf Haji committee was in Kiambu County was captured within the substance of the BBI bill.
well, there are people who would stand up in this forum
Yes.
and say, I oppose this bill, or I oppose this particular specific amendment for
Yes,
specific
we
reasons.
had quite a number. There was concern about the perceived expanded legislature and the perceived expanded executive arm of government. But these are issues that are explained away. Because when we exist within a global community, recently, I'm sure all of us here, we are followers of international news. And we saw Italy, which has a population of about 60 million, doing a resolution to reduce the number of representation in Senate and Parliament, National Assembly, from 900 to 600. The BBI bill proposes we have about 50 million
Yep.
Kenyans. We are only proposing to expand the size of the legislature to about 500. So we are within the international man,
With one country as an example. Okay.
No, it's not. We are getting there. Sorry. In the United States, they are thinking of expanding the size of the Congress from 435 to about 900, because there is a slavery heritage for the number 435 because 435 assumed that the black people, people of the black descent, did not represent a full
vote.
So there was an assumption that all people of black descent represented 2/3. So there is a congressman in the US who's challenging that assumption currently. If you look at France, they have about 950 in Senate and the Congress. And world over, even in Rwanda and South Africa, the number of representatives is not a function or is not subject to the GDP. Is subject to the population. And we are going to grow this economy by leaps and bounds. Because in 2003, we were at a GDP of about 500 million. Currently, we have a GDP of about 3 trillion. We are able to expand this economy. Previously, we thought the Kenyan economy...
but justify the representation.
The representation that we are talking about now...
Must we have that representation?
Worst case scenario, we are looking at 532 in both Senate and the National Assembly.
Justify that representation. Do we need to have...
And the reason why we are doing this is because the cultural attitude of most voters is that they would not vote for women. Okay, fine. But we also recognize that women are taxpayers. And you cannot have taxation without representation. Currently, from the gazetted census numbers, women stand at 52% of the Kenyan population. If you look at the elected representatives, we are only able to do about 10% women. So this is an issue we have to address through affirmative action until such a point when the Kenyan populace embrace women representation.
And in order to do this, you need more people in order to make this stick as an idea.
Not just more people. If you look at the BBI bill, we are going to place the responsibility of assuring that we have 2/3 observance of the gender bill, of the gender rule on the political parties. And for political parties to access 15% of the political party funding, they must at least present a nomination list that has 1/3
Gender rule.
So we are placing the banded where it belongs, the political parties.
Mheshimiwa, let's say I buy what you're saying. Now, let us look at other problems that we have. Not only problems that we have, but which are alive with us on a daily basis. The number of teachers we have in public schools vis-a-vis the number of students. The number of healthcare workers we have vis-a-vis the population. Okay? Those are problems.
Police officers.
Thank you very much. You see, this is the good thing of having colleagues who understand where you're going with the discussion. And I could go on. So am I to take it that if these numbers that you say are justifiable, are they justifiable in helping solve these problems that we have and which we continually... Remember, we still have health workers on strike. Because the one thing that everything we're saying does, it raises the wage bill. You can't run away from that. Now, some may argue, but you see health workers, all that we understand. But there is a way in which these problems can be solved. Are we saying that what you just presented eloquently and well will take us along that path where all these problems will then be solved?
There's a place I would want us to go back to, and I would wish we just had time. Because in 2004, President Mwai Kibaki appreciated the role that a qualified and motivated civil service would help push economic recovery in the country. And appreciating that, he appointed one of his special advisors, Stanley Murage, and a university professor from Canada called Joyce, I think Maraga. From Nyamoya. Thank you very much. Nyamoya. And then after they did the study, they realized so that we pull the best from the private sector to the public sector to drive recovery and reasoning and policy formulation, we have to pay commensurate rates that the private sector is paying both at home and abroad.
Right.
Fine. So the reform policies so as attract the likes of Mugo Kifati, who came in to drive the Vision 2030, and many others professionals from the private sector to the public sector. Those reforms so as even draw a person like Professor Nyikal from the private sector. He came into politics because now politics was paying well. So
Wow.
Professor Nyikal came from public service.
he went to politics because politics was paying.
Let's just go with the flow. Let's just go with the flow.
Okay.
Fine, let's go.
Carry on the flow.
So Nyikal, and you saw Professor Nyikal is able to empathize with the fate and the plight of health workers when they appeared before the Committee on Health in Parliament. So we want to have a situation where people serving in the public sector and the people who are oversighting them in Parliament and the county assemblies can both relate. Okay? So we have a situation where we are having an issue with the public wage bill. But if you look at it, what is the issue? The doctors are demanding for more in terms of risk allowances. The teachers would want, in terms of the ratio of teacher to student ratio.
Mheshimiwa, I want to interrupt you. You know why this problem arises? Huh?
Yes.
You know, when people talk of inflation, huh?
Yes.
It means that the cost of just living
Yes.
is running ahead of everything else. Okay? So a tomato which used for 10 bob, you could get 10 tomatoes. Now you get 1 tomato for 10 bob. Okay? So if this BBI that you people support could talk about ensuring that our cost of living goes down, this need for these high salaries wouldn't arise because your salary wouldn't be that much, but you'd be able to live on it. But if you keep increasing salaries, all you're doing is you're increasing inflation.
I agree with you entirely. But what the BBI is envisioning to do is to create an environment where more producers, whether local or from abroad, would aspire to come into Kenya and produce here.
How is it doing?
What we have,
that is the job of government anyway.
This is economics.
How is BBI doing?
This is economics you are talking.
To foster an environment
what City Muga is talking about is a wage push inflation. And the way to reduce the wage push inflation is to increase production.
Yes.
So that with the little that you're paid, you're able to buy more.
But my point is that is the job of government anyway, to create a conducive environment through which all these things can
and
be
governments
done.
elsewhere.
A document should not have to come in now to do
recently, a study came out about who is doing better and who's doing worse than Kenya. And people who have amended their constitution 17 times, like South Africa, Nigeria, are doing better than Kenya. We are placed number 6 in Africa in terms of GDP. South Africa is number 2. Just after Nigeria, who is gifted in terms of petroleum. So South Africa, since 1996, has amended their constitution 17 times. Rwanda has done it about 10 times. India, who is doing the better and is the greatest democracy globally, has done it 103 times since 1950. So constitutional amendments to frame the way we go about governance is a welcome way. The USA has done it 35 times. It's the most stable democracy in the world. So there's nothing sinister in us attempting to amend a constitution 10 years after inauguration. And you remember, 40% of the population agreed in 2010 that we have a problem with this document.
So, Lord, you realize you have not answered the question. So exactly how is BBI going to attract FDI?
FDI. Because you realize, and this is an issue that economists have agreed, that 1 year prior and 1 year after the general election, we are so polarized that instead of attracting foreign direct investment, we are pushing it away, okay? And we realize the issue with our own elections is that winner takes it all, and we are very polarized, ethnically mobilized nation.
This one I have to interrupt
This
you.
is an issue that we need
this one,
to listen to
please
each other.
forgive me, I really have to interrupt you here because one of the biggest contributors to what you're calling direct foreign investment is not anything you're saying.
Yes.
It's the cost of power in this country. The cost of doing business for any would-be investor is so high that they look at it, and at the culprit at the center of it is how much our power costs. People look around and they figure, I can actually do this thing next door.
Yep.
No, you single out the cost of power, but yes, that plays in part to attracting FDI.
It's a contributory role to making a conducive business environment.
Disturbances
Let me interrupt
on
you.
all about the elections.
I want to say, because we'd like to say thank you very much to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since 7 o'clock. We have in the studio with us Solomon Kinuthia. He is an MCA for Ndenderu ward in Kiambu County. Kiambu is one of 22 counties that are going to be discussing the BBI Amendment Bill today. And all indications are that Kiambu is geared to vote overwhelmingly, unanimously, yes, to the BBI. So Solo is giving us a rundown of how they have arrived to this particular point. You can tune in to Spice FM, KTN Home, 94.4 in Nairobi. Mombasa is 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, and 97.7 in Malindi. This conversation continues into the next hour on Spice FM. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Okay, so here we are. We still have the Ndenderu ward MCA. The conversation we're having is power is one of the things that is actually pushing investors out of the country, going to neighboring countries. Ethiopia has taken a number of industries from this country. Egypt, some of the
Uganda, Rwanda, even Tanzania.
Is it political stability?
And I say it's a classical question of which comes before the other, the egg or the chicken. Because those countries that you mentioned that have been able to stabilize the cost of power, they also have stabilized the cost of political contest and their political overall political environment.
Actually,
people who want to come, we are naturally gifted
this
in
conversation
geothermal.
is going to be with me interrupting you. Mheshimiwa, it is not true.
Other than Italy, Kenya is the greatest producer of geothermal energy, okay? Why are investors going to Italy to harness geothermal energy and Canada and bypassing Kenya? So because of political instability?
It is because their energy, even though we have vast resources of geothermal, how much you pay at the bill is still very high.
Yes, because we seem to insist on somehow, because of contractual issues, buying power that is expensively produced
and
by generators.
And that's why I agree entirely with the president. When
Government
he said,
comes up with a tariff called, I don't know, this and the other. There's
when
foreign
he said,
exchange.
he's not going to leave this country in the hands of thieves because he appreciates that we are on the takeoff stage of economic recovery, and we cannot entrust the welfare of this country and the prospect of this country to people of questionable integrity.
The problem with that
Because
statement
that's another
is this.
issue.
The problem with this statement is that this is a statement coming from the president, and even if the president himself is as innocent as driven snow, okay? If within his government that has happened, unfortunately the buck stops with him. Unfortunately, it does.
So we can just say we are glad that he is living, and we shall choose who we want to take over from him. It's not for him to decide
in all fairness,
who he wants to leave it to.
We
It's not
appointed
his.
independent
our
constitutional
country.
commissions and independent offices that are entrusted to fight graft.
Going on with the conversation about BBI and the debates that's going to be happening in the county assemblies today and in days to come. So let's just jump into the issue of the car grants. We had this conversation with you on the phone a couple of days ago, soon after the meeting with the president in Sagana.
Yes.
MCAs were promised this, and then swiftly we saw the Salaries and Remuneration Commission coming to say, oh, yeah, this is actually possible. We've had a discussion with the county governments, and the Council of Governors have assured us that there's a way they can juggle the balls until MCAs end up driving swanky brand new cars worth 2 million shillings. Then later we started seeing KRA wants to tax that money. Then now we are hearing Council of Governors saying, but you know, guys, you saw the money is not available like immediately.
Yes.
What's the situation like right now? Have you received your 2 million?
Not as yet. And I would be highly circumspect discussing this issue because there is a medical doctor from Nyeri who's moved to Nyeri High Court. And as you know, Nyeri High Court is a court of competent jurisdiction. And the doctor, because we used to sue in Nyeri High Court when we were a province, in Central Province. And we respect the Nyeri High Court. And we are ready to subject ourselves to whichever decision that the Nyeri High Court would make as regards the car grant issue.
Fine.
So we are waiting to hear the debate or whatever submissions the doctor and his lawyers would have objecting to payment of the car grant. And we are willing to accept the outcome of that case. But as things stand, most of the assemblies that I know of have not paid the car grant, despite an instruction from the Salaries and Remuneration Commission instructing the clerks to release these payments. Because in view of the Council of Governors' submission, in view of the evaluation of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and in view of an earlier petition to the presidency and the COG by the county assemblies forum, the grant is payable and is legitimate. But since it has been challenged in a court of law, it's only fair that we await the outcome of that lawsuit.
You know, where the problem arises, and I'm using the word problem deliberately, with this grant, is the timing of it. That money, a grant should be given to MCAs, I do not see an issue there. This is something that should have been given a long time ago, given what they do and the importance of their role, which I think is often misunderstood and underestimated. The timing of it.
The timing is not a subject to the laws of the land and the Constitution. We tried to locate and legitimize this issue in 2014 when I was not even in the county assemblies. And the county assemblies forum made a robust and a very justifiable claim for the car grant. Just the subject that the MCAs reminded the presidency of these long outstanding issues in Sagana, and the president promised to honor it. Delay is not a denial.
It is true, but you see, delay here or timing is not so much the president's promise.
Yes.
It starts with the meeting in Sagana, the import of it, what was at stake. Even the gathering of all these leaders within that region was part and parcel of a certain agenda that was being pursued. So if at the end of the agenda, as you correctly put it, a long-standing issue was resolved, the issue, because it's a political situation that we're talking about and political decisions have to be made, unfortunately, it invites question. Why now?
When is the ideal time to settle that issue?
Actually, the truth is there's never... The ideal time was in 2014.
Yes.
Yes, that was the ideal time.
For reason unknown to us, it was never settled. But the National Assembly has been enjoying this. And those are registrators and
just
the
like
Senate.
You.
Just like those in the county assemblies. And mind you, the philosophy that I spoke about from Kibaki's time, that we need to attract and retain the best in public service, is what informed the structuring of the MCA salaries in 2013 and the subsequent grant of these vehicles in 2017. Because who are we oversighting? Whose legislative proposals are we looking into? Look at the profile of the governors that we are supposed to oversight. Okay, fine? This is not to say that highly educated and experienced and exposed people cannot be corrupt. So we are balancing that off in the interest of Wanjiku at the grassroots. Who is the MCA that you ideal MCA that would want to oversight somebody like the Laikipia governor, who was a high official, senior official in World Bank. Wangamati in Western Kenya was again a very high-ranking official in World Bank. Governor Nyoro in Kiambu, a highly experienced economist, a high-ranking official in Rockefeller Foundation. Who are you attracting and who are you retaining to oversight the proposals and the spending of these high-ranking officials? Professor Anyang' Nyong'o taught political science in Mexico. Who are you equipping? Who are you retaining? Who are you attracting to oversight the doings and the undoings of Professor Anyang' Nyong'o in Kisumu?
The person we shall retain and hire is the person who presents themselves.
Yes.
And then that person is picked by the people.
Very well. But we would need somebody who's qualified to a certain extent to understand the policy proposals of Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, who taught economic policy in Mexico, political science. He's come here home. He's a high-ranking person. He's formulated the Constitution of Kenya. Who are you equipping to registrate, oversight, and appropriate money for Professor Anyang' Nyong'o to spend?
And
he should be somebody of comparable
qualifications. Do you think the people of Kenya are not able to make that selection upon those requirements that you've talked about?
You can make that selection, but are you able to retain based on your remuneration?
So no,
I can look at this panel and I can say that the Standard Media Group is attracting and retaining the best.
Your PR is top notch.
Are you saying so low? So you cannot present yourself
if you're not able to pay, no, if you're not able to pay and motivate the best, how you're able to lock horns with the best in this country and question the public policy, question the inclination of politicians in the country. And I'm telling you, some of our politicians are the best there is in the world.
We'll be concluding our conversation with you shortly, but we'll also be segueing into a conversation with the clinical officers.
Yes.
Health is devolved.
Yes.
Clinical officers are having a dispute with the county governments.
Yes.
All right? So as very well retained, very well remunerated members of the county assembly,
Yes.
what is it that needs to be done so that you can also retain very well and very highly qualified people who have gone through education and want to work as clinical officers, and right now they are on strike for very many days because they don't feel all those things that you're saying. They're not feeling very
from
well.
the foremost, I would want to admit that I'm the chairperson Health Services Committee in Kiambu County, and we've resolved all outstanding labor issues with both the nurses and the clinical officers. And for the doctors, Kiambu County is a destination of choice because we try to motivate and attract and retain the best in the county.
Tell us how you do this, Mheshimiwa.
We make sure that there is room for growth, that all requests for further education are approved, and we do this in line with the National Labour Union's stipulations. If, for instance, currently, the labour unions have gone to court to challenge the retention clause, because originally we had a retention clause of 3 years. So we are binding by the court ruling that the bonding period of 3 years is irregular. So we are allowing them to go and learn, and if they would want to come back to Kiambu, fine, well and good. If they would not want to come back, well and good. We also allow them to choose the areas of specialization. We give them risk allowances as a county. But we're having a problem with the national labor unions because in the spirit of solidarity, even when we've abided by the demands of the local chapter of the labor union, they would still would want to stay away in solidarity with their national union colleagues. So to a large extent, our own labor problems at the local level are informed by the national demands, where we have no jurisdiction to point out those issues. But BBI comes in handy to address even the larger demands that the professionals working in counties would want to place on the county administration.
How so?
Because with 35% allocation, as opposed to 15%, we are able now to go over and above whatever requirements they would want to have for so long as they align with the law. And this is not a problem unique to Kenya, because in Nigeria, the sharing between the national and the regional government is 50-50. So I wonder why people who are opposing 35 say it's not achievable, and yet 50-50 is achievable in Nigeria and many other jurisdictions. In as much as we are going into stimulation of own source revenue, and we are looking at ways in which Turkana could get a lot more from what we are extracting from Turkana, Kilifi could get a lot more, Kwale could get a lot more from what we are getting from base titanium. It's only fair that a large chunk of revenue goes back to the grassroots, because spending at the grassroots is informed by local needs. And there's a saying in commerce that culture always takes strategy to breakfast. So local levels, we are attuned to the culture. So whatever national strategy the national government has, we are going to take the national government strategy to breakfast when money comes at the local level. So my take is 35 is attainable, and it's also not at par with African benchmarks, which is led by the greatest economy in Africa, which is Nigeria, which is giving 50% to the regional government. Yes, and that is going to enable us not just to attract best doctors locally, even the people from Cuba, the doctors from Cuba who come and work in Kiambu when we have 35%. We are able to attract directly from Cuba.
Oh, wow. Yes. Okay.
Okay. Solomon Kinuthia, thank you very much for joining us today. So, the vote at the county assembly, what time is it going to be?
We are going to move the notice from 10, and then at 2 p.m. we are going to vote on the BBI. But I don't anticipate any problems, because BBI is attuned to the local needs of the Mount Kenya region, and we are going to have a Super Tuesday today.
Okay.
So
let me stretch your imagination if you'll allow me. We've heard about Kiambu, but now you brought in what I wanted to ask you.
Yes.
The Mount Kenya region.
Yes.
Do you feel that all the other assemblies in the counties that represent or are representative of the Mount Kenya region think and feel the same way as you do?
Exactly, because our problems are pretty much
the same.
If it's about the tea sector, the coffee sector, the pyrethrum sector, the population problem, the population density, the youth disillusionment with people in government, all these issues are very similar in the problem with drug abuse in the central Kenya region. Actually, I had a meeting with members of the county assembly of Washingishu yesterday in a city hotel, and they also told me that they are seriously considering voting for BBI. Yes.
Okay.
So BBI is just what the doctor ordered.
And you think of the 1 million voters in Kiambu, you think 1 million of them will turn up to vote for the BBI? Come the
100%. Actually, I've said it in black and white that if in Ndenderu ward and in the Raja Kiambu constituency, BBI fails, I will not be presenting myself for re-election in 2022.
Because this will be a referendum on you.
Yes, my people would have failed me. Because the problems they present to me,
and not the other way around, that you would have failed the people.
I was able to codify those problems and contribute to the BBI, which is a solution maker. Okay. And they have rejected what I have prescribed. So as a doctor to the problems in the grassroots, my qualification would be of doubtful.
Thank you very much, Solomon. We hope to have you again soon in the coming days after this particular vote.
I'm happy for you hosting me, and next time I hope to keep time.
Yes.
And that's a problem of development, because we are doing the airport Westlands.
True.
What is it called?
Expressway.
Yes. That has caused all this delay.
Yes.
But we thank God for this kind of development, and we hope to see more
with the BBI.
as you go along with the BBI.